Hello and welcome to A City Law Firm Soundbite. Today's topic is around separated parents. This can be very difficult and potentially very expensive for all involved. So to this end, it's very important that parents understand some basic legal points when dividing custody and thinking about separating. I am joined today by ACLF's Senior Family Law Solicitor, Janette Johnston, who has kindly agreed to share her wealth of experience and knowledge in this topic. Janette has over 20 years' experience as a family law solicitor and has worked on divorces, child custody, and everything in between. So thank you very much for joining me today, Janette.
Thank you, Ollie, and thank you for inviting me to this soundbite. Just touching on your introduction there, I'd like to start by just talking about parental responsibility. What happens is that mothers automatically have parental responsibility as they are the ones who give birth to the child. Fathers have responsibility for their children, but the law is a little bit more trickier there. As from the 6th of May 2006, if a father's name is on the child's birth certificate, then they have the parental responsibility. Before that, the law was a little bit different. And if one party were to say, no, the child isn't mine, then they would have to do testing, basically DNA testing, if a party didn't agree. You may ask, what is parental responsibility? Parental responsibility is where you care for your child, provide accommodation, and you make sure that their medical needs and their financial needs are satisfied. On top of that is their schooling needs, their educational needs, basically. So you need to make sure all of those are in place. You have a duty as a parent to make sure all the children's needs are in place.
Absolutely, and one of those responsibilities is the disciplining of the child. And a recent sort of update in the law and this weekend was that Scotland have made brave steps to sort of stop the actual physical hitting of a child, and they're putting that into their legislation now.
Yes, and that's an amazing, brave thing for Scotland to do. And it's quite antiquated now to smack children. And there's lots of other information out there how to help children in a way without unreasonably chastising them. And I agree with you, Ollie. It is very brave of them, and I welcome it.
Yes, as do I. So that was a sort of just intro into the actual responsibilities that a parent had. But I did want to just ask you if what happens if parents split and it's not a very amicable split and relationships break down. What are the sort of key things we need to be considering?
Well, the key things to be considered, Ollie, is the welfare of your children. Basically, they must become a priority, no matter what both parents are going through. It's really important that you agree as much as possible as to when both of you can see the children. Parental responsibility gives each parent an equal right, unless, of course, there is some safeguarding issue, such as drugs, alcohol, sexual abuse. Those are the issues where parental responsibility could not be in your favor. So you need to consider and be brave and look to how many times a week the absent parent is going to see the children of the family, what holiday arrangements are going to take place to include Christmas, birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and reach agreements that grandparents can see the children, because those couples who have parental responsibility will also want to share some of those arrangements with their children's grandparents. it's most important that you come to arrangements. But if you do not or cannot come to an agreement, the only option then is to try and mediate. But if you cannot mediate, then the only other option is to go to court and make an application under Section 8 of the Children Act. That is quite a long process, and any magistrate will look to see whether there's been any safeguarding issues. And in the absence of any safeguarding issues, then you will be ordered for the absent parent to have contact with their child. And it will be a long and expensive battle.
Okay, so the sort of key points for that would you say I'm correct in thinking that if relationship does break down and you can't speak things out, you can get protection and go through the courts, but it is always just the best advice to just try, be reasonable, and just speak to the other parent and just try and come to some kind of agreement without the help of courts.
Yes, absolutely. That would be the better way forward. Because what often happens in court is that both parents come out with an agreement that they're not happy with. That's the tricky bit.
Yeah, definitely. What would a parent need to consider if they're moving away from the separated parent with the children, but they're within the UK?
Okay, so what happens is usually when parents separate, a family will want to go back to their natural part of the country where they may have other relatives living, which they're allowed to do, but only with the consent of the other party, basically. And the court will take into consideration, what is in the best interest of the child or children. So it is further agreement that needs to be made between the parties. If you don't agree, you can make an application to the court for a specific issue order. And the court will make a decision whether the child can leave that part of the country to go and live.
And does that position change if it's abroad where the separated parent wants to move?
And it's often the case, if you have parents who come from different parts of the world, and a party still disagrees that you return to your domicile, you must ask for permission if you leave the country. If you don't, it can add a lot of frustration, a lot of expense trying to fight it out when it has happened. Often people try to steal the jurisdiction of where the child is going. But mainly, if you do come to an agreement of living in a different jurisdiction, it's quite clear that the parent who's moving is going to have longer periods of time, i.e. during the summer holidays, to be with their children. And included in that is who's going to pay the expense of the flights for the children to go there, who's going to accompany the children. All those things have to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's all the questions that I had for you today. So just wanted to say, thank you for sharing that. I hope that everyone who listens into this or watches this is it's been useful to get a more basic understanding of the general principles that surround separated parents. Things that you've got to consider. It's not all straight-laced. It will be difficult. So if you have any questions on this or you'd like a bit of help on a more personal issue, then please reach out to us here at A City Law Firm for a free initial consultation, and we can help you go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janette.